Hey guys, Dimension Master Studios here. How y'all doing? So, names. I have one, you have one, Ninjago characters have them. Names are something that you'll find just about everywhere when it comes to everything, basically. And when it comes to names, they usually tend to have meanings associated with them. And when it comes to Ninjago, this is no different. When it comes to all the characters, they have names, and each of them have meanings to them. So in today's video, I thought it would be interesting to take a look at the names of various Ninjago characters and take a look to see whether or not the meanings of their names actually fit with them and these characters. So let's get into this whole thing. So before we start off anything when it comes to the video, there are a few things I want to go over first. For one, this is only going to be taking a look at the 8 main ninja when it comes to Ninjago. So I'm only going to be taking a look at Kai, Jay, Cole, Zane, Lloyd, Nia, Aaron, and Sora. That's it. I'm only looking at these 8 characters and that's it. But if you guys want me to make a part 2 going over more Ninjago characters and the meaning behind their names, then please feel free to tell me down below in the comment section. Also, something else that I want to bring up, in case I get any information wrong when it comes to this video, whether it's stuff when it comes to the meaning behind certain characters' names or the origins of certain names, that is completely on me, and I apologize if I end up getting any information wrong in the video, and please feel free to correct me down in the comment section. And also, leave me any other bits of information surrounding the meanings of certain names when it comes to Ninjago. I would genuinely like to hear that down in the comment section. And finally, one last thing that I want to bring up before I start the video is actually a massive and also a very long overdue thank you to fellow Ninjago YouTuber ParachutingKitten. Because for those of you who don't know, in her recent video that she made talking about Loikita, she actually brought up my Loikita video that I made for Valentine's Day last year. She used various points that I made in that video in her video. She gave me multiple shoutouts during the video, and she also referred to me as, quote, the most prolific voice on the matter currently in regards to Loikita. I was genuinely shocked when I found out about this for the first time, and it's something that I genuinely cannot believe actually happened to me. ParachutingKitten, on the off chance that you end up watching this video, thank you so much for the shout out. It genuinely means a lot to me, and again, just thank you so much. And also, if you guys haven't seen her video talking about Loikita, I would highly recommend you check it out. It is very, very good. And so, yeah, again, I just want to give a really big thank you for what happened. And so with all that out of the way, let's take a look at the ninjas' names. So for starters, we have Kai, and there are some interesting things that I found out when it came to him. For starters, in both Hawaiian and Japanese, Kai can apparently mean ocean, which is ironic when it comes to Kai, given the fact that Nia is the one who has elemental powers related to water, and also we know that when it comes to Kai, he isn't able to swim, so again, it's kind of ironic that his name relates to water in some way. Also, when it comes to Japanese, Kai can apparently also mean open or shell/shellfish, which, once again, neither of those really relate to Kai all that well when you look at things. In Greek, Kai's name can apparently mean keepers of the key, which also doesn't really relate to him, and it can also mean earth, which, once again, that's something more so for another ninja, Cole, obviously, since he's the elemental master of earth. Meanwhile, for Kai, he's the master of fire. And also, interestingly, when it comes to Welsh, Frisian, and Scandinavian, when it comes to Kai, in all 3 of these languages, it means warrior, which I would honestly say does fit with Kai pretty well, given the amount of fighting that he tends to do when it comes to the show. But again, that's really the only meaning for Kai's name that I'd say actually works. Meanwhile, for the rest of them, none of these really fit with Kai all that well, especially when it comes to his name meaning ocean. After this, we then have Jay, and right off the bat when it comes to Jay, we actually know something about his full name, Jay Walker, and it's that this is obviously meant to be a play on words when it comes to the term Jaywalker. That's pretty common knowledge when it comes to Jay and his full name. Also, when it comes to Jay, his name can apparently mean lively, joyful, and intelligent. All 3 words that I say would honestly describe Jay fairly well, at least until what happened in Dragon's Rising, but still, for the most part, I'd say that these would honestly fit with Jay pretty well. And also, when it comes to Jay, it can apparently mean victory or triumphant, which, once again, I'd say those are some words that fit pretty well when it comes to Jay's character. And that's pretty much it. There isn't that much I was able to find when it comes to Jay. But for the most part, I'd say that the meaning of his name does honestly fit pretty well with his character when you look at it. After this, we then have Cole. Interestingly, when it comes to Cole, apparently it was originally an English surname. And when it comes to Cole, it can mean things like coal black and charcoal. And this is something that I think is interesting because coal and charcoal are both two things that relate to fire. Yet when it comes to Kai, he's the ninja of fire, and his name can apparently mean earth, which is something that's more so related to coal, obviously. So that's something that I think is pretty interesting. When it comes to the meanings of Kai and Cole's name, they actually have something that relates to the other person's elemental power, so that's something that I think is pretty interesting. When it comes to Greek, Cole's name can apparently mean victorious people, which is something that I do honestly think fits pretty well when it comes to Cole's character overall. Also, when it comes to Cole, apparently it could potentially be derived from the Latin word colus, which can apparently mean stalk or stem, which is in reference to plants, which I guess does kind of work in a way for Cole, given how plants come from the earth, and Cole's the elemental master of earth, so it kind of fits, but not really. Still interesting though. After this, we then have Zane, and in Hebrew, Zane can mean gracious or merciful. Two words that I would say honestly fit really well with Zane, given his kind nature and him being a really good person. I mean, he was literally made to protect those who cannot protect themselves, so I'd say these fit with him. In Hebrew, Zane can also mean friend of the sea. Something else that I would say fits with Zane, given how his elemental power is ice, and ice is obviously a solid form of water, and we saw Nia learning how to control snow and ice during the events of Season 11, so I'd say this fits pretty well with Zane. Also, when it comes to Zane, in Arabic, Zane can apparently mean handsome or beautiful, which is something else that I feel fits with Zane really well, because as we know, during Season 3, Part 1 of Dragon's Rising, Zane got swole for buffness. After this, we then have Lloyd, and I looked up stuff when it came to Lloyd, but the only thing that I was really able to find for him is that apparently in Welsh, Lloyd's name can apparently mean gray or grayed hair. That's really all I was able to find when it came to Lloyd. Now, when it comes to gray, this can be a reference to maturity or wisdom, which I would honestly say fits with Lloyd fairly well when it comes to the show. With wisdom, it makes sense given how Lloyd became a master during the events of Dragon's Rising, so that fits pretty well with him. And when it comes to maturity, we have constantly seen Lloyd grow and change as the events in Ninjago go on, so I feel like that does fit for him. But again, for the most part, the only thing I was really able to find for Lloyd was his name apparently meaning gray or grayed hair, which I think is kind of funny, because obviously when it comes to Lloyd, he's still young. In fact, when it came to the original Six Ninja, Lloyd was actually the youngest member of the team, yet his name is in reference to something more associated with old people, which again, I think it is actually kind of funny. And even during the events of Skybound, when Lloyd became an old man, he got white hair, not gray hair like Garmadon when he was old. Again, I think that is something that's kind of funny. Now, with that being said, in Irish, Lloyd can apparently mean fair-haired, which I do think fits better with Lloyd given how he has blonde hair. Although, again, when it comes to Lloyd, his name apparently means gray-haired, which again, I do think that is kind of funny given the context of who he is. After this, we then have Nia. Now, in Swahili, Nia means purpose, and this is something that I do honestly think fits well with Nia, given how a big part of Nia's character is her identity, and sometimes during the show, we've seen Nia lose her identity, resulting in her losing her purpose, with her not knowing about what to do going forward, which is something that I do think is interesting, and so when it comes to Nia meaning purpose, I feel like that does make sense for her character. In Hebrew, Nia can mean a friend or a companion, which, once again, I do honestly think that does fit pretty well with Nia and her character. And also, there's Japanese, and this is something that you've probably heard before. When it comes to Nia, it's something that's usually used as a form of onomatopoeia in Japanese in reference to the sounds that cats make, which is something that doesn't really fit with Nia all that well, considering she's never really been associated with cats throughout the events of the show. However, and this is probably the only time I'm going to get the chance to bring this up, so I want to bring it up, but something that I do think is honestly really interesting is that when it comes to the video game franchise Xenoblade Chronicles, one of the major characters in Xenoblade Chronicles 2, who later returns in Xenoblade Chronicles 3, is a character who's also named Nia, but her name is spelled with an I instead of a Y, and her and Ninjago Nia share a surprisingly large amount of similarities with one another, and when it comes to Xenoblade Nia, she is a cat person, so the naming fits there, but again, I think it's interesting that we have these two characters named Nia who have, again, a surprisingly large amount of similarities similarities between one another. Again, I'm probably never going to get the chance to bring that up at any other point, but I really love the Xenoblade franchise, and it's something that I know, so I just wanted to bring that up during this video. After this, we then have Aaron, and when it comes to Aaron, his name can mean enlightened or mountain of strength. And neither of those I'd say would really fit with Aaron all too well. For Mountain of Strength, I'd say it wouldn't really work, primarily because Dragon's Rising tends to present the idea that Aaron is struggling in comparison to the rest of the team, and he's not as strong or as skilled in comparison to everyone else. So his name having something to do with strength, I'd say doesn't work that well. That being said, though, Lloyd has brought up on a few occasions that Aaron has the potential to become the greatest ninja in all Ninjago, so his name meaning strength is something that could end up working. We're just going to have to wait and see what happens when it comes to Dragon's Rising. And as for enlightened, once again, I wouldn't really say that works the best when it comes to Aaron, primarily due to him being one of the younger and more inexperienced members of the ninja team, as well as him also being manipulated by Roz multiple times throughout the events of seasons 2 and 3. So again, I wouldn't say enlightened works the best when it comes to Aaron. In Korean, Aaron means beautiful / pure, which once again, I wouldn't really say that fits with Aaron that well. Specifically pure, given the fact that when it comes to Aaron, we've seen him do numerous bad things throughout the events of Dragon's Rising, especially when it came to his corruption arc during Season 2 Part 2, as well as what we saw with him during Season 3 Part 1. So again, pure is something that I don't really think fits with Aaron all that well, because again, we've seen him do multiple bad things throughout the show. However, and this is something that I found to be the most interesting, is that when it comes to Aaron, spelled with an E instead of an A, Aaron can apparently mean Ireland. Like, the country of Ireland. That is what Aaron's name means, which is something that I do think is actually pretty interesting. Aaron's name means an entire country. So, yeah, there's that. But overall, when it comes to Aaron, I wouldn't really say that any of the stuff that his name means really fits that well with his character when you take a look at things. And finally, we have Sora, and what's interesting is that when it comes to Sora, we're actually given an in-universe explanation behind what her name means. Because, as we learned during Season 1 of Dragon's Rising, Sora is apparently the ancient Imperium word for orphan, and this is something that does end up fitting with Sora, given how she ends up running away from her parents shortly after the merge happens, and she ends up becoming an orphan after that happens. So again, when it comes to Sora, that's something that does fit with her character. After this, we then have the Japanese meaning for Sora, which means sky, which is something that doesn't really fit with Sora all that well, given that when it comes to Sora, nothing that we've seen from her really relates to the sky all too well. When it comes to stuff like, say, her powers or her personality, again, sky doesn't really fit with that stuff. We've seen her make some vehicles that have the ability to fly, and that's about it. That being said, though, when it comes to sky, there is, of course, the saying, the sky's the limit, in reference to stuff like creativity or potential, which is something that I would say does fit with Sora pretty well, given the fact that she is an inventor. And also something interesting is that when it comes to Sora, it could potentially be derived from the name Sarah, which in Hebrew can mean princess or noblewoman, which is something that doesn't really fit with Sora all that well, although at the same time it kind of does, specifically when it comes to Sora's voice actress, because I'm sure as a lot of you guys know, she previously voiced Vanya during the events of Season 13, so that's something that I do think is actually pretty interesting. And so that's pretty much all I got for you guys. Overall, when it comes to the ninja, when you take a look at the meanings of their names, I think it's honestly really interesting when you see things. Because for some of the ninja, like Jay and Zane, I feel like the meanings of their names do honestly fit pretty well with their characters and personalities, given what their names actually mean. Meanwhile, when it comes to characters like Kai and Aaron, I wouldn't really say the meanings of their names really fit that well when it comes to their characters and personalities. And this isn't me saying that when it comes to the ninja they were given bad names or anything, or that it would make more sense for the ninja to have names that fit better with their characters and personalities. I'm not saying that at all. I'm taking a look at this thing in a more comedic way, essentially, just seeing what the ninjas' names actually mean and seeing how it relates to their characters. I think all the ninja were given fine names, and I do honestly think it is interesting seeing what the ninjas' names actually mean and seeing if they relate to their characters really well, or if they really don't, especially when it comes to Kai. And so that's pretty much all I got for you guys. So tell me down below what do you guys think. Tell me, was there anything that I left out when it came to the meanings of the various names? And tell me, was there anything that I missed? Again, tell me down below, and I hope you guys enjoy. Later, guys, this is Dimension Master Studios, signing off.